IoT is actually ripe for automation. Right now, a lot of folks are doing, deploying IoT projects, but there's not a whole lot of sort of overall orchestration, right? So I'm really talking about automating automation, which is kind of meta. And I'm talking more about business process automation on top of IoT rather than just automating the devices, right? IoT is sort of, gather data and automate stuff, but how do you orchestrate all of that so it's useful for your business? So I'll talk about how it started. I've been doing IoT for about 15 years. I started back in 2003 or so with something called Project Sunspot. And then I took this new job with Camunda last year, and during the negotiations, it was made clear this is not an IoT job. And I was like, okay, great, it's not an IoT job. We don't do IoT. Great, we don't do IoT. And as part of my onboarding, I met with all the execs at Camunda, and all of them looked at my background and said, IoT, we should be doing IoT. And I went back to my boss and I said, promise, I did not do this on purpose. I'm not trying to manipulate this, but it seems to be working. So the original talk is about automating a greenhouse, right? Put sensors in the greenhouse, put sensors outside so that you know what the outside temperature and humidity and pressure and water is, and the inside, and you can then automate your crops, right, in your greenhouse. It's a huge market, right? Almost $1 billion now, and it's going to go up. Legalized weed has not hurt the automated greenhouse market at all. But that's it for the greenhouse. I'm not going to talk about the greenhouse anymore. Because I haven't finished the project, other stuff came up this year. It's been a really, really, really crazy year for me, and I'm about halfway through with it. So I submitted this talk, and then things went nuts, and I wasn't able to finish the greenhouse. So I'm going to talk about this little project that I did, and it dispenses candy. Actually, Skittles aren't working so well, so I'm doing M&Ms, but I didn't adjust my talk. So my first assignment when I joined this company was to, literally within 2 weeks, do something for Halloween, they said. Do something fun for Halloween and write a blog post about it. I've only been here for a week. I don't know what the software does. I don't know anything. So let me come up with something just random, right? And since I have this giant hammer called the IoT, everything looks like a nail. I'm going to hit it with that, right? So this was Halloween in COVID. Nobody wants to go near anybody. Nobody wants to go near children. Children don't want to go near anybody. Nobody wants people coming to your house to knock on the door and you don't want to open the door and hand them candy. So I decided to, again, hammer, meet, nail. I'm going to automate giving out candy, right? So I have to pull off this project in like a week. I have almost no time to do it. So I have to do it quick, I have to keep it simple, and I have to make it kind of fun, because that was the whole point. As always, what anybody will tell you as a writer is write what you know, right? So I did what I know how to do. So the basic idea is kid rings the doorbell, right? It takes a picture of the kid in their costume. You rate the costume, you decide how old the kid is, and based on a couple of other parameters, it automatically dispenses candy. You never have to open the door, you never have to talk to anybody. I can do this without even being home, right? I don't have to put a bowl of candy on the front porch anymore. I can just put this there, they ring the doorbell, it takes a picture of them, and automatically dispenses candy. So I got to build a doorbell, I got to build a candy dispenser, I got to automate it all using Camunda BPMN. If this works, VC funding, I'm rich, I can retire. It's going to be really easy. It's going to be great. So to build the doorbell, I used an ESP32 cam, which is a camera module on a little tiny board. It's this. It costs about $5, which is ridiculous. A push button, some LEDs, the candy dispenser, and I just happened to have all this hardware lying around. And if you've ever been into my office, that's what the tool chest in my office looks like, it is full of stuff. So it's not really a surprise that I had stuff just lying around. So start with the hardware. And no, never start with hardware in IoT. Never start with hardware. Hardware should be the last thing. But I started with hardware. I drew out a schematic of what I thought this doorbell should look like. ESP32 cam, a couple of LEDs to let me know what's going on, and a push button for the doorbell. And then I built it, and spot on. In fact, it's a year later, it's still here, and it still works. I've broken several parts of it and just been able to swap in parts, and it just works. So, building a candy dispenser. I need something to hold the candy and dispense the candy, and a motor to turn it and spit candy out so that it comes out. So again, first comes a schematic, and then build it. Nailed it a second time. I am not a hardware engineer. I will say this up front. I just play with hardware, which is why I blow it up all the time and do really stupid things with it. So I'm also terrible at 3D CAD. I have a 3D printer, but I suck at it. So I copied a candy dispenser off the internet and printed it, and you can see it looks kind of awkward. It's right here, actually, same candy dispenser, still looks awkward, still works. I changed the design on the cup a little bit so it would maybe work a little better. We'll see about that. So where's the automation and the BPMN in here, right? How did I automate this? So I drew out a process diagram using our modeler. And so the process is somebody rings the doorbell, and it takes their picture, and it submits the picture to a form. And I then go look at the form and say, is this a picture of a person, or is this a real picture? If it is, I say yes, and it goes on in the process. If it's not a real picture, it just goes into the bin, and we don't talk to that person anymore. Next step in the process, I decide, I add a piece of candy if it's a real picture to their little virtual candy basket. And then I decide, do they have a good costume, a great costume, or a terrible costume? So I rate the costume. And depending on that, I either add 1, 2, or 3 pieces of candy to their candy basket. And then I go and I rate their age. So kids under 5 are adorable, so they always get extra candy. And there's a couple of other age brackets, and if you're over 15, you should probably get a job and buy your own candy, so I'm not giving you any, and you get kicked out of the process and you get nothing. Because, that's how it works here. And you can see it's a fairly complicated process with a lot of steps in it. And it turns out it took a lot of human interaction from me, because I had to first pull up a form and say, yeah, that's a good picture. And then I had to pull up a second form and say, yeah, that's a terrible costume. And then, but they're under 5, so they get a bunch of candy. So it's like 3 steps of a human interaction. It took a lot of time. So we can see this in action. Wait, go back. It's supposed to play my video. No, go back. There it is. Oh, is it not going to play my video? So, all right, fine. It won't play the video. The video is a lot of fun. But basically, oh, there it is. The treat dispenser didn't really work well with Halloween candy, so I did it with my dog. And I put him in a costume, and so picture comes in, and I would go look at the picture, and I'm going to narrate this. There's some narration on the video, and it's really terrible, so I'll do another second set of terrible narration right now. So there's Bruno, and I got his picture, and I rated him as a I decided that he had 1 piece of candy in, and what did I say? I said he had a great costume, because a dog in a hat is a great costume, right? And then on the next time it came up, well, I decided I knew he was under 5, so I rated him as under 5. And then here he is being a good dog, and out come treats. And he gets treats. So that's how that worked. It actually worked pretty well. Yeah, my kids look weird. The candy dispenser wasn't built for candy. It was actually built for dog treats, which is why I did it that way. Dogs are acceptable stand-ins for kids, and you can fight me on that. Don't fight the dogs because they're useless in a fight, as you can see. That is their typical, that's where they hang during the day. So we can make this better. We can always make it better. So I looked at this, and the decisions of how much candy were actually coded into the model itself, and that's a terrible idea. Don't do that with BPMN. You shouldn't actually code it into the model because it makes it really hard to do version control and bug fixes and things like that because it's not the right thing to do. But I didn't know any better at the time, so that's what I did. And then as you can see, there was too much human interaction. I had to go and do these 3 different forms to evaluate this picture. Took too much time. The dog would get impatient for treats. Kids would probably leave if it was working for kids. So I redid it. I collapsed the model down to 1 human task and then automated all the decisions with what's called a DMN, a decision table. So I could code the decisions based on all of those inputs of whether it's a great costume, whether it's actually a picture of a person, and how old they are. I could combine all that into a decision table, which would then decide how much candy somebody got. And there was only 1 human interaction, and the rest was automated, and it was much faster. So I used nested decision tables. Took the age as input and the costume rating that I gave it as input and determined how many Skittles they were going to get, and then output the number of Skittles. And you can see there's one up top that says is costume, because if it's not a costume, the decision table doesn't even run. Right? You don't get anything if you're not wearing a costume. So, who needs people? We can actually, if we move the goalpost just a little bit, we can get people out of it altogether. And I wouldn't have to do anything, and I could fully automate the process, and I wouldn't even have to be home or online or looking at a web browser or anything. Picture gets taken, candy gets dispensed, I never have to do anything. I like things that I don't have to do anything. So we moved the goalposts, and we made an even shorter task, right? A new picture comes in, we have a process that evaluates the picture and either dispenses candy or tells you to get a job. I said single decision table, I kind of lied. There are 4 decision tables that lead into the main one to decide how much candy. And they're based on, anger, sorrow, surprise, and joy. That's weird. And that's because Google AI does not currently have a picture matching algorithm that will match kids in costumes and decide how old they are. It will just look at a face and decide whether you're happy or angry or surprised or full of joy. So I did that. Again, move the goalposts just a little bit. So I used AI to augment this whole thing. Google image processing, take the image, take the picture, submit it to Google AI. It gives me back all of those emotions as integers. I can feed those into a decision table. It decides how much candy you get, and out comes the candy. Simple, all right? I know, all talk, no demo. So, live demo, always a danger to myself and others. I'll make that a little bigger for you. There's not really much to see. Let's start the server. We'll start the original version of it, which takes all of those decision points. And I have my camera here, so I will take my picture. I hope there's enough light here. Did I not plug it in? It's not plugged in. Oh, I see what it is. There. Okay. LEDs flash back and forth until it finds the network so that it can actually take the picture and submit the picture. It's ready. Okay, so time to take a picture. Come on. Reliable demo hardware is always a great thing. Oh, there's my picture. Great, and you can see down here in the bottom an incoming file, picture 11. Great. So now we'll go over here and we'll look at, it's probably timed out. No, yep, it has. There we go. I have a running process. I have one instance of it. It's called Skittles. There's that original process map, right? And you can see that I've got an activity instance sitting there at that first place. So I'll go over here to my task list. And I do, in fact, have a picture here to evaluate. And there I am. So I'll claim that picture, I'll claim this task, and is this a good picture? Well, that's actually kind of subjective, but I'll say yes just for argument's sake. Great. And now I have another one, a different task. And if I can go back and look at the task list, and you'll see that token move along the, so we'll do that next. But there we go. Let's rate my costume. Well, it's terrible, so we'll go with terrible. But you see I have three choices: terrible, not too bad, and great costume. So we'll choose terrible costume. And you'll see that now there's an estimate age, and we can go back here and look at our process model. Remember the token that was over here? It's gone through these decisions, and it's down here at the last one. So if I go back here to task list, and I click on this, I can see that I've gotten one piece of candy so far, because yeah, it was a picture, but my costume was terrible, so I didn't get any extra candy. I am absolutely not under 5 years old. Well, that depends on who you ask, I guess. But I'm over 15. I know this. I've checked my driver's license today. And so, no candy. I got nothing. And if I go back to my process model, I've got no running processes. And I can look at this, and there's nothing going on here. But I can look at the history. And I can even turn a heat map on here. And I can see that I spent a lot of time talking when it was sitting in that first one, right? And I can see that the process was completed. And you can't really see it, it's over there, but 4 decisions so far that I run on this model have gotten no candy. The last one was the last one that I got no candy. I'm kind of depressed about that, but I can fix that. So let's go and start this process to run on the newer, shorter process model, right? The one that only has the one, I only have to make the one decision. So take my picture again. Let's hope it's better this time. I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you. There's my picture. You can see that picture number 12 just came in. So let's go over here and look at the processes, there it is. I've got one process running here in more Skittles. And it's sitting here in the evaluate picture. So there's one human task that I have to do. So I'll go over to my task list, and I'll look at this, and ooh, I made a really nice form. And if I claim that, I can see that the picture's really no better. But I can do all of this evaluation in one place now. So I can say, this time I'll say it's not too bad, and let's just say I'm 11 to 15 years old for argument's sake. I act that way a lot, so it kind of fits. And M&Ms came out. Yay, I got candy. And you can see that there's no more tasks. So that was a single interaction I had that all I had to do was go one time, evaluate everything in that, and the decision table took care of all the rest. Last part of the demo. Let's see if this works. We're going to run the version that uses AI. The vision processor is started. All this stuff should be working now. And let me just open this so that you can actually see M&Ms come out. So let's try this. Let's see. Sometimes if it's too dark, it says there's no person here. So we'll see. And there's the picture. It says no faces. It has worked with a mask. Pardon me, I'm really not trying to infect you, but let's try this again without a mask. So you can see it found one face. It says it was very unlikely that I'm angry. Well, it's right about that. It's very likely that I'm joyful, I'm not surprised, and I'm not sad. And so I got 10 Skittles. The decision table for how many Skittles you get is a proprietary formula that I developed by coming up with random numbers and multiplying them by other random numbers, and then subtracting them and adding other random numbers until some number comes out the other end. Trade secret, it's where I'm going to get all that VC funding and get rich off of a simple Skittles dispenser. I am actually shocked that the live demo worked because sitting at our booth for the last hour, none of it was working. And then I get up here and it all of a sudden starts working. So I usually conclude my talks with a quote, a pithy quote from my mom. My mom was a computer scientist, and she had lots of them, and this was one of my favorites. So, questions? Anything? Yes?
So, speaking of algorithms and your proprietary mathematical structure, and the fact that you're talking about Halloween costumes, and you're using an emotion-based structure, decision structure, you know, usually the scary costumes are the fun ones, and they tend to look angry.
Yes.
How do you take that into consideration?
Well, actually, so that was something that I discussed with, I stupidly actually had lots of discussions about this algorithm with how I'm going to come up with who gets lots of Skittles, because it's just this silly little project. But, so people that are angry or don't have any joy should probably get more Skittles because it would make them happy, right? So there's that, and I can actually show you, I will open up our modeler. My laptop is so not happy right now. It has just been miserable. All right. And please don't let my desktop give you a panic attack. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can hand out Xanax afterwards if it's really affecting you. It's terrible. It drives me crazy, and the only thing about it that leaves me even slightly sane is that I almost never look at it. So here's the actual model, right? Let me open the here's the auto Skittles model, right? And this model, I actually drew this model, and then these models are actually executable. So I then can upload this model directly to the platform server, to our process engine, and this model begins to execute. So let me see if I can find in all of the disaster that is, I have to find the DMN table. Let's just search for nope. Where is my, auto Skittles decider.dmn. So there's my DMN table, right? And I built each table separately. So we take our anger amount, and if we drill into that, if it's greater than 0, we actually take that amount and multiply it by 5, because I want to make you happy. You shouldn't be angry getting Skittles, right? That's just wrong. If it's less than or equal to 0, you don't get anything additional to that. So I actually do take these things into account, and literally I made this up as I went, but I did talk to other people about it, right? So one of the nice things about automating IoT in this way is that it's really a business decision, and it's no longer do you need an engineer to go and code this stuff, right? All the coding is done on the back end, all those processes work. And if I decide this algorithm is not working and I need to change it as a business person, I can go into this decision table and change how that algorithm works, and then deploy the new decision table and have it decide on that. So let's see, what did I get on for my scores? Oh, that's not the right window. You see why I panic about these things, because I have a lot going on. There it is. There it is. So I was, there was lots of joy that gave me lots of Skittles. So let's go back and look at, is that the, I can't remember how to make this go away. All right, let's take our joy Skittles, right? Random calculation, right? Divided by 4 times 2, whatever. Let's make that 20. And now I can deploy this decision table. Deployment succeeded. So if I go back to my I can go and I can look in here. It's probably going to ask me for my password again. Nope. So let's look at our decisions. Auto Skittles, decide, input joy. Am I on the right one? Here it is. There it is, times 20. right? So now, let's see what happens. I should get a bunch of Skittles. Or M&Ms, really. Oh, it's jammed. It's better at dog treats. But if we go back here, it should tell me I got 8 Skittles. I'm not sure why I only got 8. Oh, because Joy was very unlikely. Everything was very unlikely, and so I only got 8 Skittles. I should change that, so if everything is very unlikely, I get a bunch of Skittles to make me happy and less angry and all of that. Other questions? Yes? So to be honest with you, I don't actually have an opinion on Skittles. Skittles are not my thing. Gummy bears are my thing. I am actually quite famous for my dealings with gummy bears. I've been stopped at airport security for having like 6 pounds of gummy bears in my luggage. But I was taking care of a friend of mine all year, and his favorite thing in the world were Skittles. So I built him a Skittles dispenser so that he could have Skittles anytime he wanted. So I'm sorry I don't have an opinion on that. That's second best, but here. I have more if anybody wants them. These are the best gummy bears. They are Albanese gummy bears, best gummy bears ever. Haribo is a trash fire. Do not ever eat Haribo. They're awful. They are absolutely the worst gummy bears ever made. The only redeeming value of Haribo gummy bears was when the sugar-free ones were available on Amazon, and the reviews were epic. They're no longer available. All those reviews are gone, and I'm really sad about that. That's as far as I'll go on Haribo gummy bears. You had a question, sir. Yep. If what's working? Yes. Yes and no, actually. So if you've deployed a model, you can't really start you can't insert a token in the middle of the model, right, and only run that last bit. You really, and for good reason, actually. So I wrote some external tasks that pick things up, and I wrote them in Go, and so when I've decided how many Skittles to hand out, right, I send a message to the, actually I just put it on a queue for an external task. And I have an external task that listens on that queue for any messages. It picks that message up, it says, oh, I'm supposed to give somebody 8 Skittles, and it sends out a message over MQTT to this, which says, oh, 8 Skittles, and dispenses 8 Skittles, right? So I could test that part because it was an external process, and I actually do test-based, test first on all my coding. So I write the test first before I write the code. So I could test that part of it. Yeah, that part works. And the nice thing about having those things so sort of compartmentalized is that when I built the new model and the third model, I didn't actually have to write any additional code, right? I could reuse that component and just say, I'm gonna call that. And in fact, I can start that server on the back end that collects the pictures and listens for all the messages. I can actually start that to do all 3 at the same time. So if I take a picture, it'll run all 3 models simultaneously, right? And so I can do some of that, but you really want, with a business model like that, you really want to know that it's working end to end, right? And so often it doesn't make sense to start it in the middle because you miss all the upstream stuff that could have gone wrong. The nice thing about deploying models like this is if I make a change and I deploy the model, then the runtime engine actually automatically versions those. So I can go back and look at which versions I have. And if you have the enterprise version, you can actually, let's say I deployed a version and everything gets stuck at this one place because there's a bug in my code. I can fix that, upload a new model that fixes that problem, and then I can migrate all of those processes that are stuck to the new model. And they will continue execution at the fixed point and continue execution. So it's actually, I mean, if you write lots of buggy code like I do, it works pretty well because you can find, oh, it's stuck here, and it will give you an alert and say, here's what's wrong. We had this exception. Okay, great. I can go fix that exception. I can deploy the new model, and then I can migrate all the currently running instances to the new model, and they'll just continue along. Does that answer your question? Yeah, and you don't actually have to restart them from the beginning. One of the things you can do in the runtime engine is you can restart them either where they are, you can migrate them to a new model where they are, or you can say, no, I really want to see what happens here, and I can take that instance and I can modify it, I can back it up a step and have it run through that decision again. No, it really is a problem. I really did do something stupid. I really need to fix that. So I'll go fix that, and then I can migrate them to the new model and have them continue on, right? There's a question over here? Yes. Yes, I am using Visual Studio Code. I am not using any particular plugins that I know of. I don't know enough to change the plugins. I think somebody posted on Twitter of I made this really cool color scheme and I liked it, so I did that. I use the GitHub Copilot so that I don't actually have to write code anymore. Just kind of follow along. I hit tab a lot because it's actually, I'm astonished at how good the GitHub Copilot actually is at writing Go code and JavaScript code and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, there were some stuff that I would start writing, function, and it would say, oh, and it would fill out the entire function. I go, okay, hit tab, and that's the function I want anyway, and it filled it out and it works. What's that? Not particularly. No, GitHub, because they host pretty much everybody's code, they have access to pretty much everybody's code. It was trained with everybody's code. Every GitHub repository that's out there on GitHub, they used that to train the model. So it's a very good model because it has literally millions of repositories and probably billions of lines of code to train it. So it's very good. And I go over the code to make sure it's not doing anything stupid, because sometimes it decides I want to do this and that's not what I want to do. But it's actually quite good. Yes? You can, because all these models are actually just XML. It's all stored as XML, and it's an OMG standard. The Object Management Group has a standard for BPMN and for DMN. There's a standard for that, and we implement that standard. In fact, I sit on the Model Interchange Working Group for OMG for BPMN to make sure that you can export this model from Camunda's modeling tool and import it into another vendor's modeling tool, and it will import and render correctly and still be executable in their tool. And the same is true of their tools. You can build your models in their tool, and save them and import them into Camunda's modeler, and it will load and render correctly and be executable in the same way. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of the other vendors, we have an open source product called, or project called BPMN.io, and that's the website for it. And it's our modeler, open sourced, and a bunch of other vendors actually use BPMN.io as their modeling tool, same as ours. So it works basically across products that way. Other questions? Yes? No, because it was only able to give out dog treats, and it was not very reliable because this is a terrible design that I stole. And so I need to go steal a better design, but I haven't had time to do that and print it. I did deploy this in the field at my friend's house in Florida while he was sick, and I could actually go online and, because I knew the MQTT broker, I could actually send him Skittles anytime. So he would be sitting, lying there on his couch napping, and suddenly Skittles would come popping out next to him and surprise him. But he could also take a picture of himself and get Skittles anytime as well. The only problem is that this thing jams. It's a terrible design. So if I got better at CAD, I would redesign it. Otherwise, I'll just go hunt around on Thingiverse and find a better design and print that. But this was, like I said, I had 2 weeks. Yeah, and it worked, sort of, mostly. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate your time and attention. And I have 2 t-shirts and a book, if anybody would like those, and I have gummy bears for anybody that would like the gummy bears. They're individually wrapped, so they're safe. I mean, if you want the M&Ms, they're up here, but they've been through the dispenser, so thank you.